very much, Senator Nelson. Senator Ayotte.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Secretary Panetta. Thank you, General Dempsey. I would like to ask about the role of China and Russia here. Let me just say up front, I'm sure you'll agree that it's outrageous that China and Russia blocked the UN resolutions, and both of them, and also most recently in February. As I understand it, according to the Center for Strategic and International Studies, a report that was issued in June of 2010, that the arms imports from Russia to Syria between 1997 and 2008, that really Russia's been a leading arms supplier to the Assad regime. Is that the case?
That's true.
And do they continue to provide arms to the Assad regime now?
Yes, Senator, they do.
So Russia is continuing to provide arms to the Assad regime as they murder their own people?
They have a longstanding foreign military sales relationship with them, and it continues on unabated.
And it doesn't seem to matter to Russia at all that they are using these arms to murder their own people. It's outrageous. As I understand it, China has also provided in the past arms to the Assad regime as well, to a lesser extent.
Let me get back to you, because there are other areas of assistance, but I'm not sure about arms.
Okay. Well, I would appreciate a follow-up to that, but they certainly, to some extent, have provided assistance to the Assad regime in the past. Do we know if they're providing any assistance now of any type?
No, I haven't been tracking intelligence on China's role in arms sales. Iran, and you noted Russia from the report.
But I think economically they have had ties into Syria that are, they still are trying to maintain.
Is it not true also that with respect to our posture with Iran in terms of wanting to impose the toughest economic sanctions possible to ensure that Iran does not develop nuclear weapons capability, that Russia and China are a key to that, because we know that Russia has actually an economic interest, unfortunately, in the Iranian nuclear program, and that China relies heavily on Iran for oil exports. Is that not true?
Correct.
And yet they have failed also to step up to the plate to impose the types of tougher sanctions we would like them to do, so that the world is together to stop Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons capability. Is that not true?
You're correct.
So what can we do to be tougher on Russia and China if they are going to take their position in the world as part of the world leadership? I view their behavior in blocking the UN resolution as irresponsible, and also the fact that they haven't stepped up to the plate to make sure that we stop Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons capability. It's all related, and it's obviously very detrimental to the safety of the world. What should we be doing there to be tougher on them? Because I think we need to.
Obviously, you should hear this directly from Secretary Clinton, but my knowledge is that Secretary Clinton is exhausting every effort to try to engage both Russia and China in this effort, particularly Russia, because, as I said, Russia, because of its long-standing relationship there, because it owns a harbor in Syria, and has the record that you just described with Syria, that Russia could, if they wanted to accept the responsibility that they should, they could be helpful here in the effort to try to remove Assad.
Well, I appreciate those efforts, and Mr. Putin just got reelected, and I would hope that he wouldn't want the blood of the deaths of Syrians on his hands, and that he would stop selling arms to the Assad regime, and of course that both Russia and China would step up, support the UN resolution, and both those countries, in my view, I don't know why they would not want to pursue every possible means to stop what is happening and the bloodshed there. So I appreciate all of your efforts on it, and I hope I hope that they understand that we're very serious about that, and we will, in the Congress, look at actions we can take too, because this is really wrong, and they're on the wrong side of history, both with respect to the Syrian regime. They're on the wrong side of history with respect to Iran, and they will look back at this as a big mistake by both of these countries if they don't step up to the plate right now. I also wanted to ask about the Assad regime's relationship just with some of the groups that we've labeled terrorist groups. What's the Assad regime's relationship with Hezbollah?
Again, I think that's probably better addressed in a closed session in terms of the specific relationship, but there has been a long-standing relationship between Hezbollah and Syria. It's actually diminished of late. Hezbollah has kind of stood aside while and hasn't directly been involved in some of the some of the violence that's taken place in Syria.
Okay, thank you. And also with Hamas?
Hamas, the same thing.
Mm-hmm. And in fact, as I understand it, at least based on public reports, Hamas is actually stepping back from the situation, yet Iran has not stepped back.
Correct.
They're continuing to push forward.
That's right.
Let me ask you, does the violence that's happening in Syria have any impact on stability in Iraq?
Interestingly, there was a point at which obviously Iraq was kind of standing to the side and not engaged, and I think as a result of what they've seen happening in Syria, that Iraq itself has now asked for Assad to step down, and they are, let me put it this way, they are more engaged than they were in the past.
Do you view this as a positive step?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you both. My time is up. I appreciate your being before the committee today on such an important issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Ayotte.